Hey friends, I'm Leslie.
Hey guys, I'm Maryanne.
And I'm Angie. Together, we are the therapists of Eden Therapy Co., and we are inviting you to have a seat at Eden's table.
Coming to you live from Miami, we believe in healing hearts, shining the light, and bridging the gap in mental health. Come sit with us as we learn, laugh, and explore how faith and mental health collide.
Hey guys, we're back. Another episode of Eden's Table.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for today's episode.
Yes, we are talking about families and mental health. So how mental health can impact families.
That's right. I'm so excited because we have Monica Palma and Rebecca Carminate that are here from Fresh Perspectives, and they do a lot of work with families in the mental health space. So, hey girls.
Hello. Thank you for having us. We're very excited.
We are. Thank you. And grateful that you guys have us here today.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves and about Fresh Perspectives.
Right. Get started.
So, as two of us combined, we are Fresh Perspectives. We are a coaching and concierge service for clients who are struggling with mental health issues. We also specialize in eating disorders. And yeah, we go into people's homes. We work with clients, we work with families, and we help them get better, meet them where they're at, and work towards the goal of getting them where they want to be.
Awesome.
That's so good.
And I guess separately, I'm Monica Palma, and I am the CEO and founder of Fresh Perspectives. I am a mother of 3. I am 3 kids and 2 dogs.
A mother of 5. Honestly.
I am a Miami native, so proud to still be here. And as if you couldn't tell, we are also sisters.
I love that.
So yeah, I'm Rebecca. Everyone calls me Reb or Rebs. So you guys can call me that. And I'm also a mother, and I think just passionate about the work that we do and overall just making people feel good and beautiful. I'm also a freelance makeup artist. And yeah, I think that's collectively something that we both find passion in, is just helping people be their best selves.
Amazing.
Outside and inside.
Yes, outside. Sometimes the outside reflects inside.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Yeah. So what drew you guys to working in this space?
So in the mental health and eating disorder space in general, just, I guess, a calling. We stumbled into working with eating disorders. We both started to work for a treatment center back in 2008. And I didn't know that was going to be what I did forever. But I think shortly after working with this population, I realized that I love doing this work. It's meaningful to me and it's important in many different ways. But that's why I'm still here 18 years later.
So tell us a little bit, what is mental health coaching?
Okay, so mental health coaching for me is a adjunctive service to therapy and nutrition in the eating disorder field, but in the mental health field to therapy. It's where we meet the client where they're at. They're coming to you guys or they're coming to their therapist to process and do the deeper work. But sometimes there are things that keep them stuck, right? And maybe it's just a matter of having someone there with them to follow through with the things that you guys want them to be able to do. They don't want to do it alone, or they don't know how to do it alone. So we meet them where they're at. It could be things in the home, it could be things in the community, at school, and we help bridge that gap so that they can follow through. They're not doing it alone, and then they can take all of that really good information back to the therapist, back to their dietitian, back to their medical doctor, and process what they were able to do.
I mean, one of the things that I always remember, Rebs, is that we shared a client in common that was really into makeup. And we kind of held it as a bar that she could have a session with you and learn some makeup techniques. And you came in and you did a session with her, and it completely changed her treatment trajectory, because she was like, oh, wait, I could do this for a living. And I was like, yes, you could do this for a living. So it was really great to be able to partner with you guys and be able to have that feedback and that added layer that obviously I wouldn't be able to do. I got the basics.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly what you said. Things that maybe you're not able to do in the space of the four walls of your session room. You're doing all this deep therapeutic work. And then once they leave, we step in and we do some of those goal-oriented action items. And we help hold them accountable. Accountability is really important to actually follow through on a lot of that work that's really difficult. Yeah.
And another piece of the mental health coaching is also supporting families.
So Mo, hold on. Let's dig into that a little bit, right? Let's dig into mental health in the families. So what happens when a family member is struggling, right? I mean, we work with families here a lot, and we can tell that there's usually like an unidentified patient. There's usually somebody in the family who's causing some issues, but you guys go in the house. So like what happens, like what happens?
Yeah. So typically, like you mentioned, there is the identified patient, the one that is kind of throwing out the signals that something is not right. And when we go into the home, we see that there's a system put in place that might, bring that out in the one person, but everyone else is struggling or suffering alongside of them. And so we see that although the one person is, calling out for help in their own way, the other families are struggling and need their own help as well. And so we see that come out in just confusion, frustration, anger, resentment, fear is a big one. And everybody in the family has their own unique experience in the therapeutic process.
So, Maryanne, Leslie, we work with families as well. So tell me a little bit about how you handle like unidentified patient in the room, like somebody who's causing the issues within the family. And then maybe you guys can share like the perspective that you guys walk in with versus what's happening in the therapy room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I work a lot with the kids, I think sometimes when like parents bring in the child, they're like, oh my God, the behavioral issues, or they don't listen, they're so disrespectful, right? And they think like, okay, I'm just going to focus on working through these behaviors and send them off to you and everything's going to be fine. And a lot of times the surprise and the pushback is in like, wait, what do you mean we're going to do family sessions? Like, we don't need family sessions. Family's fine. It's just him. He's the problem. And it's like, no, he's operating out of a family system. So because something is wrong with one part of the system, that reflects that there's something wrong within the family system itself. So we kind of work through like the dynamics of the family. Like if the kid is, having like acting out or having behavioral issues, what's going on within the parents? Are they getting enough attention? Is this an attention seeking behavior? Is this like, I'm letting you know that there's something wrong with the family and I don't feel safe, something's going on at home? Something else is, I think it's an indicator that something's wrong with the family system itself.
Absolutely.
So we look at a systemic approach, but really from a family therapy perspective, right? So we're looking at using tools, that might help families to learn to communicate differently or to, to talk about trust, or I'm just thinking of the things we actually use in therapy. And then how does that differ from what you guys do?
So we get, I would say, the privilege to see how those things play out in real time.
So good.
Yeah.
So fast.
And it's one of my favorite parts of my job is because we get to gather information and bring it back to the team. We work very collaboratively with the teams. But so let me kind of paint you a little example.
That's great.
What we might see in a home. And I'm going to maybe refer to eating disorders, which is, one of the main reasons why we're going into people's homes. But, we might get called into a case to work with an adolescent struggling with their food behaviors, right? So we're coming into the home, parents are kind of in their,
natural habitat.
Kids are in their natural habitat as well. So they feel a little bit more comfortable in kind of doing what they do, even though we're there, they are
But they become accustomed to us being there.
Yeah.
over
yeah.
time.
Right.
So, over time we get to see how maybe the parents' relationship with food, and this isn't to put any blame on families or
No.
parents around why their loved one is struggling with an eating disorder. It's just to reflect back on sometimes they have their own relationship with food that they aren't aware of. They can't see it for themselves. Maybe they've never had these kind of conversations before about food and how it relates to how they were raised or how they feel in their body. And so we're maybe observing some of their own food behaviors or rules that may have influenced their loved one. Now imagine that their loved one is being taken to either a treatment center or a therapeutic setting to work on those things, but then they have to come back home and change their behaviors around food, change the way that they see and think about food, but everyone else around them is still in that same mindset.
Yeah.
How hard it is for them to not just change it for themselves, but to change it for themselves when other people might be viewing food, viewing their body differently is a whole other animal. And so we get to approach the families with that feedback in a way that hopefully that they can see for themselves or hear. It's a non-judgmental approach. And we get to help them make those corrections in real time, or at the very least understand where their loved one, what the changes their loved one have to do in order to reach recovery.
How many food fights do you guys witness?
It depends on what kind of food fights you're referring to.
I'm thinking like the movie Hook, and you've just inspired me. Maybe with the food fight with it. I think that could be super healing for a specific client. That just takes away the intensity of food and makes it fun again.
Yes. So, sometimes there's parents that are reading a lot of books or researching 1,000 different treatments, or even asking ChatGPT, how do I help my kid, right? And so, how do you guys work with that within a family system when a mom or a parent is super involved in their kids' recovery? Not that they shouldn't be, but they're kind of really in there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, I really like when parents go through their own learning process. I think it's important for them to understand what's appropriate to say, what's appropriate not to say. I definitely think there needs to be some level of involvement. I actually really enjoy when the parent involvement revolves around they're making their own changes as well, because
That's
it's a wonderful model for their loved one that it's okay to make those changes, and it's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. So that parents and loved ones can show up for the client just doing those changes for themselves. And so involvement in that way is very special, and I think very meaningful for the process. I think if you're talking about just an over involvement, I do recognize that parents who are trying to be there and learn and maybe sometimes go a little bit too far, it's coming from a place of love and fear.
Right.
And so I approach it like that. And us being there in those cases helps to alleviate some of that fear, because we have seen what happens when somebody really gets to work and does the process. And maybe in that moment, you can't see what's at the end of the tunnel, but we can provide that insight for families and say, okay, right now this feels really hard and difficult, and you might not be able to imagine what this looks like, what recovery might look like. We can help you paint a picture and give you some rest to your fears in that arena. And I think that typically will lower everybody's guard. We also can help kind of hold parents' hands or loved ones' hands through the process so that they know what next step to take. Obviously, with the recommendations of the treatment as well. And that also kind of lowers their fears and lowers their guard.
Yeah, I think once they see that things are kind of working, there's a sense of relief in the family. We don't have to be this anymore for our loved one. We don't have to take the role of 24/7 caretaker or police officer
Right.
and really like, having to question everything. But they feel relief when we're in there doing that work for them, and they can take a step back from those roles that really, for I think most parents, they don't want to be in those.
Sure.
They want to be a parent, but not in that way.
Yeah.
And another thing that I want to mention in terms of parental involvement is we want to make sure that the parents aren't stepping in to solve all the problems
Right.
for their loved one, and that they're giving their loved one space to work those things out on their own. I think that's a very important life skill, number one. Number two, it really boosts somebody's self-esteem and self-worth when they can come to a conclusion, make the changes for themselves. And that's not to say that parents need to butt out of the process.
No.
They can show up in a very different way that feels very loving, very supportive, creating the environment for that person to feel safe enough to do the work for themselves.
Yeah.
We always say like the parents have to be part of the process and they have to be a team with us. Like it can't happen outside of that, because I always tell our clients, right? Like your parents are going to be with you always.
Yeah.
A therapist, a coach, we are going to be with you for a season.
Yeah.
And even though some of them want us to be part of their lives forever, like it's like, no, that's not the actuality, but your parents are really there for you forever. So it's so valuable what you guys provide within the home, because it's kind of like real time being able to follow through with maybe something that we recommend inside of our sessions, but you guys get to see it as you spend time with the families and they become more comfortable having you there. And you're able to kind of like help implement those changes.
Yeah. I always say that I try to work myself out of a job, right? The more tools that I can hand off, not just to the client that we're working with, but their loved ones, so that they feel confident in navigating this journey, while we tend to start pulling back a little bit more and more until we are no longer part of the equation. Yes, we're always there just in case for support, but I jokingly refer myself to Mary Poppins, who like comes when you're needed and then goes when
you fly away with your umbrella.
She has an umbrella.
No,
with a
stop
bird
it.
at the end.
I actually
Stop
dressed
it.
up as Mary Poppins for Halloween once. But
So let's talk about the whole family unit, because a lot of times, like when I've worked with families, sometimes I get the sibling that doesn't have the issue, right? The big issue. And sometimes because everybody is so in tune with the person who has the issue, they forget about all these other pieces of the family. So what do you guys do with that?
I love siblings.
I love that.
Well, you guys are siblings, right?
It's fun, you know.
So I think siblings, and part of the reason why they're coming to see you, right? They feel abandoned. They feel a sense of loss, or even grieving the loss of like who their sibling was. And so when we go into the homes, we are just as involved with the sibling as we are with the actual client, because they want to be involved in this process. They want to see what's going on. Of course, we make sure that it's appropriate, right? Age appropriate, and that we make sure they understand what's going on. And we want to normalize us being there for them just as much as the client. And so as much as that we can involve them in with eating disorders, sitting at the table, food preparation, and allowing them to reconnect with their loved one, and we're there to see it and witness it. I think that it really is a nice thing to see the relationship build back up, and then they come out of their shell.
Maryanne, Leslie, you both work with a family and you work with the siblings. And they recently had a father who was diagnosed with an issue. And how do you see the work that you two do in tandem, supporting the family and helping them kind of support each other?
I mean, I think at the individual level, we're helping them kind of find their own ways to cope with everything going on with their dad, and getting an understanding of what kind of the dynamics, what roles each of them play. But so far, I think we've helped them at the individual level. I don't think we've done it together.
I mean, I think because we've addressed the individual concerns, like we have helped the family system.
Right.
Yes.
Because the big issue was like the kids were stepping up as caretakers now because of the dad's issue and realizing, wait, I'm just a kid. Like my job is generally just to enjoy being a kid and also like feel my feelings about what's happening with my dad, but not try to step up and save.
Right.
And I think that has empowered the mom and, to kind of
100%.
be caretaker
Yeah.
and also be a supportive wife and also, hey, like, let me nurture my kids and help them through their feelings.
Yeah.
I find often in our work that the siblings are sometimes the truth tellers,
Right.
and they're, I want to say, a lot of time, and I'm a parent myself, so I also know that this happens for me. We have blind spots when it comes to our children.
Yeah.
And when it comes to just family dynamics, it's important for somebody to point those things out to me, and I'm referring to everyone else in general. I find that there's always a sibling that is kind of saying, hey, like, this isn't right. Sometimes parents don't know how to hold boundaries with the person that is struggling.
Yeah.
The person that has the eating disorder issue or the mental health issue. They don't know how to hold the right kind of boundary.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the siblings, they know where the boundary needs to be laid. And so just even paying attention to them and giving them a voice in the process, because they're hurting too.
Yeah.
It isn't just the person that is saying, like, I'm sick, I'm struggling. It's also the person that stays quiet.
Right.
And I have a soft spot in my heart for those that are struggling in silence.
Yes.
Of course.
So
Absolutely.
I make it a point to ask them questions. Like, ask them, how are you feeling? How is this affecting you?
Yeah.
And so because I'm witness to these different dynamics, whether it's at the table or in the home, I can then go back into the treatment team and say, hey, like, this is what's coming up.
Right.
This might be affecting recovery or the recovery process. So it's important to address that.
Yeah.
Now, the information that you guys have is so valuable as a therapist, like to have, because obviously we're not going to go into the home and sit with patients or with their families forever. We bring them to the office sometimes and we work with them here, but it's still not the same because it does take a while to get that like familiarity that allows them to drop their defenses and for us to be able to work.
Yeah.
But you both have also done a lot of sibling sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, those have been fun. We get to see the different personality types and honestly what is kind of going on with them apart from.
It just gives, I think, a clearer picture of what's really going on versus just having the one identified client come in and give like their perspective.
Yeah.
Because I will say, and it's funny what you were saying, Monica, because I do feel like sometimes the parents come in and they're like, no, this is the one that's the concern. Like the other one I don't have to worry about. They're so good. They always take care of everything. They're so responsible. And I'm like, that's the biggest concern right here. That's the one I'm most worried about. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or like you were saying, Monica, the suffering in silence. I also agree with. Like I worked with a family where the oldest had an eating disorder, but the youngest was suffering in silence and self-injuring, and the parents had no idea. And I was grateful that she came, and she's much better now, and she's doing great, and I love that. But she also needed her space.
Exactly. Exactly. And we do try to give space for everybody that's involved in the process. I think that, like I said, it's a family unit, a family dynamic issue. It's not necessarily a one-person issue. And I think that also takes some pressure off the person that is struggling with their mental health issue or their eating disorder. Is that it's not just about them. A lot of times they carry guilt and shame that they've brought this pain on their family. But to say that, hey, you didn't choose to do this. This happened to you, and it's sad and tragic, but it's not just a you thing. It's everyone else, and everyone needs to step up to the plate to do their work.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a second about faith, because I know that both of you also carry a faith-based component to your work. So how do you guys incorporate your faith into the work that you do in the homes? And how do you not incorporate it? No, I'm just kidding. How do you incorporate it?
Well, I think there's a subtle way to do it, or there's a outward way to do it. If the family is religious or faithful, absolutely, we're talking about that openly. We, want God to be the center of the recovery process and you know, in the middle of the table, right?
Yeah.
If that's not necessarily their goal or something that they resonate with, I think just our work individually is always centered around that. Like with God being the center of my life, your life, and we look to him for inspiration, for guidance. If, you know, we're feeling stuck with a case or like, you know, how do we approach a certain thing? Like, we're praying about it. We are leaning towards him. And so he is leading the way and giving us that direction. So, with just, you know, individually, how we approach things, how we want to show up for the family, God is at the center of that. And if the family wants it, I'm shouting it from the rooftops. Right. You know, we're reminding them, and, you know, God being at the center and at the helm of the ship is gonna, you know, really get them where they need to be.
Yeah.
They need to do all that work, right?
Right.
He could lead you there, but you have to put in the work.
Right.
But I truly believe without him in the center of our lives, like, we would be nothing, we would be nobody, and we wouldn't be able to reach that, you know, final goal of healing.
And remember, we're going into sometimes very difficult situations in this epicenter of the crisis. And
You're in the eye of the storm.
we are sometimes literally in the eye of the storm. And we need to be centered in those moments. And I use my faith to center myself, to ask God for strength and peace, to be able to not fall into the choppy waters or to be caught up in the storm, but to be just like stillness when a family needs that. I can't do that without my and without God. I pray before going into any session. So daily, I'm praying before going into meeting with my clients, because I know that they need for me to not get caught up in their storm. You know, they feel safer and stronger when there's some person that is just there for them without falling into maybe their dysregulation or combative eating habits.
It's so funny because as you're speaking, like, I'm thinking about when Jesus was in the boat with the disciples and the storm was like so crazy, and he said, he was sleeping, he was like, we're gonna be fine, you know. And he was able to just say one word and calm the storm. And I feel like that is the representation of what you guys are doing in the home. Like, you're going into that choppy water and you're not sleeping, obviously, but you're able to say, peace be still. And the waters are kind of calming, and the family gets a sense of peace and a sense of calm.
Absolutely.
I agree. And I feel like when you, like, I also try to like pray before entering every session, and I feel like it illuminates, like, I'm grounded, and whatever I'm picking up on, like, if I start feeling anxious, or if I'm going into family session and I start feeling like, okay, wait, I feel the pressure to say the right thing, like, that's how my client's feeling. Like, that's just revealing to me, like, okay, this is what's going on in the family system. This is the work, you know?
And if I'm stepping into a home and I feel like, oh my God, this is like anxious and chaotic, I have to be able to take a step back and say, oh,
that's not
okay. It's not mine. And this is what exactly what you said. This is what they're dealing with.
This is what they're feeling when they're at home.
And to be honest, like, I don't always go into my cases outwardly speaking about my faith, but it always ends up coming to light in different conversations with clients, with families. And I find that if I walk in my faith, people become curious about, where's this coming from? Where's the peace? Where's the where are you grounded? And I have opportunities to be able to talk about my faith. And I've had clients who, for example, I did a live-in last year where I lived with a family for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And I would obviously let them know that on Sundays I wanted to church. So I would take a few hours off to go to church and then come back home. I didn't really even talk about it. I didn't mention it. And the client and her sister were asking me questions about where I was on Sunday. And so I was like, oh, I go to church. And then a few weeks later, it ended up being like, go with you.
Yeah.
And I was like looking at the and she's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I would start taking them to church with me.
Mhm.
And then, at the end, the whole family had something
Beautiful.
their faith.
Right.
And so
That's
I didn't have to talk about it. I just lived my example.
Yeah, it's like here a lot of times, well, when we started Eden, people said, like, why are you doing the whole faith thing? Like, that's going to prevent people from coming. And I was like, absolutely not. They will not prevent people from coming. And one of the things that we always say is we're here to shine the light, not blind the light. Like, we're not converting anybody, but we're definitely shining the light of Jesus and letting people know, there's hope. There's a lot of hope. And when you have faith, recovery is so much easier because you just know that there's something else, right? There's something else to live for. There's just something else, as opposed to when there's no faith, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
We try to find sense of meaning and purpose, but I have found that it's a little harder.
I think people are hungry, no pun intended, hungry for that connection. And some people don't even know what it is. They're just looking for it.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I was searching. I went to so many different types of faith before I came to Jesus, I would say, So I understand that searching. I understand that thirst and that knowing, like, there's something else out there. I may not know what it is, but there is something else out there, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for families also, the faith is important because all illnesses, but mental illness, what we're talking about here today, bring on a ton of fear. And fear for me is not from God. So I find that it's important for parents to hold on to that faith when they do have that faith,
Right.
to turn to their faith, to surrender their fear to God.
To God.
And it just makes the world of a difference also in their own need to control things, or it trickles down
Right.
the line.
Yeah. I would say I agree with you 100%. So we always like to get towards the end and we like to talk about tools. So in your experiences, and we can share some too, what are some tools that have really helped families that are in recovery or headed towards the process of recovery?
Okay. Tools as in?
Like, what's something that a mom or a dad could do today that could help them? Or what's something that somebody who's contemplating recovery can do today? So I would say an example is on our website, we have free resources that are easy to download. And we have from parenting cards to affirmations to meal support, placemats. And those are things that can just help families. We've also bought for family table topics, which is like a little box of cubes of questions, because sometimes families don't know even what to talk about at a table or together. And those are fun because you just kind of like pick them out and ask each other questions, and it starts the conversation.
Yes.
I think in terms of tools, what I think might be helpful for families is to, we have a list of resources that we can share with clients when families specifically, when they come to us. We have a list of books to be reading to prepare themselves. Like I said earlier, education is important, knowing what to look for.
So what's an example of a book that you recommend?
So I really like to start families off with the book Sick Enough, which is a medical-based book written by Jennifer Gaudiani. She has a clinic in Denver, not to give her a shout out because she doesn't know who I am, but I
shout her out anyways.
I think if parents know, because mental health is a topic that is still very much taboo. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's, conversing with their friends about, hey, my son's going through this, or my daughter's going through that. It's also not taken as seriously sometimes. And to hear or read about the medical complications of what you're going through, I think is super important, because the work that needs to be done for recovery is painful, emotionally.
And I think it's hard because you can't see mental health issues. It's not like, you have a broken leg or you have a rash.
And it's hard to measure sometimes, but there are some things that you can ground yourself in. Okay, there's things showing up in blood work. There's things showing up in vitals. The menstruation's missing right now. So there's several things that you can gauge. And I think that's important for the start of the process, because it is a very hard process to go through. So
I like to recommend for eating disorder specific, I like to recommend Life Without Ed. I know that it's a simple book and like it's been talked about so much, but it helps people to understand like what the thinking
Yes.
inside of an eating disordered mind is.
it's
Definitely.
still back, and it's still very important.
I agree. I love it. So Mo, before we close, I want to share a story about a client that we shared in a group setting. And Hispanic families are just different.
Yes.
Right?
I think I know what you're gonna talk. I think I know what you're gonna talk about.
And I was doing the therapy and you were doing the meal support with this family. And it was a group setting. So we had several people. And
Abuelita?
yes.
I refer to this so often on how important and beneficial it is to bring in outside of just the parents
Yes.
and even the siblings,
Extended family.
extended family. I love the abuelita.
Especially in Hispanic families.
Yes.
So, well, this time we were doing the meal support with like a group, and I was sitting in on it. I was grateful enough to sit in on it. And we had like 3 Hispanic families, I think it was at the time. I'm pretty sure it was like 3.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, one of them just brought their parent, right? But then there was one that brought the aunts, the uncle, was it the uncle too?
Remember.
And the parents and the grandma. And then there was the other one that brought the grandma. But we learned so much from that experience, from all of the family just sitting down and eating together. It was kind of fun.
It was
Dynamics play out.
It was so
Big time.
It was a beautiful experience to me.
Really
And I just want to say that I'm always so grateful for families to let me in and see their pain and suffering, but also their joy.
Same, yeah, it's exactly the same for us
It's
too.
so like humbling to me, and sometimes it makes me get emotional because it really helps me see and understand sometimes where I get stuck and like where do the changes need to be made. And then an abuelita comes in and she's sharing her truth, but she's also sharing her relationship with food. And
Absolutely.
can you imagine at like 70, 80 years old, you're now here like learning about your relationship with food.
Right.
Yeah.
And how beautiful it is for them to become interested and to learn at that age how they can make it better and support their loved one.
For their granddaughter,
But
which
because
was beautiful.
one thing that I wanted to leave the message here today is that it takes a village.
It does.
To heal. It takes a village. It's not just family members. It's the village of friends as well.
Yeah.
And again, mental health is something that we don't talk about. So we don't ask for support around it because for many families, stigma.
Yeah.
Right.
But the village is also your faith, God. You cannot do it alone.
No, you can't do it alone.
We can be a part of the village. Your treatment team can be a part of the village. But the more people you have surrounding your loved one in support, education, accountability, the higher outcomes of recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have more support.
Absolutely.
You have more support. Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here with us.
So thank you so much for sitting with us.
Yes. So if you liked our episode today, make sure you
share.
Comment, like, subscribe.
Thank you so much for sitting with us again.
So next time.
Till next
Thank you,
time.
guys. Well, friends, thank you for tuning in. And remember, freedom is possible.
Join us next time at Eden's Table, where you can always sit with us.